There is Jesus, there is another Jesus. There is spirit, there is another spirit. There is gospel, there is another gospel. I'll prove it to you. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse number 4. Stay with me. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse number 4. For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit which you have not received. That means when you go to a church and people are falling down in the spirit, ask which spirit. Ask which spirit is in operation, because you need to know the spirit. There is the Spirit of God and there is another spirit, and they have similar manifestations. Okay, there is Jesus, there is another Jesus. So you go to a church, they're calling Jesus, but it's not Jesus who died, it's another Jesus. So the question now will be, how do I know which is another spirit, and how do I know which is another Jesus, since they are similar? Look at it. He now says, or another gospel which you have not accepted, ye might well bear with him. That word, you might well bear with him, means resist him. So there is another gospel, there is another spirit, there is another Jesus. How do I know which one is the Spirit of God? The question to ask is, what did the preacher preach that has made people to be falling down? It is the message that determines the spirit, and it is the message that reveals the Jesus. What is the man preaching? The content will determine which spirit is in operation, and the message will determine what kind of Jesus the man is calling. Because Jesus is not Jesus, even though Jesus is Jesus. So it is the message that determines which Jesus, which spirit is in operation. I can show you another one. 2 John chapter 1 verse 8. It's just one chapter. 2 John verse 8. Look to yourselves, that we lose not those things which you have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. Pay attention, I beg you. Next verse. Whosoever transgresseth and abideth not in the doctrine of Christ. Abide in the doctrine of Christ. The word doctrine there is the Greek word didache of Christ. Didache is spelled as D-I-D-A-C-H-E, didache. And abideth not in the didache of Christ, hath not God. How do I know if there is God in a preaching or in a church or not in a church? Ask yourself, what teaching abides here? Because any church where the core is not Christ from the beginning to the end is not God moving. Look at it. Whosoever transgresseth and abideth. The word abide means to take up residence. That means the message that lives there is Christ. From the beginning to the end is Christ. It's not motivational speaking. It's not steps to success. It's not pillars to prosperity. It's not sow a seed so that God can multiply your business. No, that's not the gospel. Moreover, there's no amount of money you give that God will multiply. So don't let anybody deceive you. God does not multiply money. If you want your money to multiply, go to the marketplace. God is not a money multiplier. Why did Jesus die? To multiply money? To save his people from their sins.